Hey guys, Kevin Yates here, and today I'm going to answer one of the questions I got about dealing with pronated ankles. So, ankle sprains and foot and ankle problems, injuries to the feet and the ankles are very, very common, particularly if you are actively involved in recreational or competitive sports. So, pronated ankle is one of the most common things that I see. And basically it's when you're walking around or running around, your ankles collapse toward the inside. The whole foot and the ankle will collapse. And, so what I've found, the most common imbalance that I found that leads to that is either a tightness or a dominance in the medial hamstrings and the adductor complex. So basically those muscles just, they're firing all the time, or they're tight, and they just pull that whole leg like that, right? So everything just pulls into a collapse. And what I found is that typically the most common weakness that exists is in the glute complex. So the glute maximus, the glute medius, and even the proximal hamstrings. So, one of the roles of the hamstrings, as you probably already know, is hip extension, right? So we want to make sure that the hamstrings and the glutes are firing together, because when they do, when they're firing properly, they'll stabilize the hip when you're standing and moving around, so that they'll kind of hold everything in place. So when your hip's stable, what'll happen is that the hip's stable, then you don't see this collapse in the knee. It anchors everything down. All right. So that's what I found, is that whatever the problems are at the distal end, so like the problems at the feet and the ankles or even the knees, are the result of imbalances that are going on at the hip. All right, so the question then is, now that we know what's going on, what can we do about it to fix it? All right, so basically what I like to do first and foremost, before I start doing anything, obviously it'd be easy to say, okay, look, we got to do our basic exercises, squats and lunges and all of those, but the problem with it is, and this is where a lot of programs miss the boat, even rehabilitation programs miss this left and right that I find, is they put people in these patterns, but they're not making sure that they've got the right muscles firing when they're there. So again, if the glute and the hamstrings aren't firing the right way to stabilize that hip, and you throw somebody on a lunge pattern, what's going to happen? It's going to compound the injury even worse, because the hip's not participating. So everything's just going to collapse and make things a whole lot worse. So the way that I like to do it is I like to start on the floor, just some basic exercises, some bridging exercises that you can do. So you can do bridges. I'll show it on a stability ball, but just so I can get the camera. But ideally, you can do these on a ball or on the floor. I would test them out on the floor first. So just simple bridges, making sure you can go hands on the chest, start with hips down, and then just extending the hips, and making sure that you feel those glutes and hamstrings, not the lower back, and you're not cramping up in the hamstrings. So it's just dropping down and just moving real easy. And it's just really working to make sure that you can feel those muscles fire, all right? So bridge is an excellent exercise that you can do. There's exercises you can do laying on your stomach, just doing straight leg raises, with trying to fire that glute and hamstring together. So what that's going to do is it's going to switch the right muscles on. So then when we stand up, now that we've got the right muscles on, it's so much easier to get into our standing patterns. So one of the progressions that I like to use is, I want to get into single leg as soon as I can. So in getting on the single leg of the affected side, so if I've got a right ankle problem, then I'm going to get on single leg as soon as I can. So one of the things what I start doing is just your typical split stance. So we can do whatever your typical lunge patterns back here. You can have a resistance band or a cable behind you and do opposite arm and opposite leg pressing. So if I had the cable behind me, I'd grab with my left hand if I'm on my right leg, and then I would just work through the pushing patterns. Right? I like contralateral rather than doing the same side, because what you'll find in a lot of the cases is that when people with ankle issues get into single leg positions, the hip will deviate a lot. It'll rotate away from the leg that they're loading, right? And what that does is it pulls everything into that collapse, right? So what I like to do to reinforce what I'm looking for is the opposite contralateral. So left arm pushing pattern into like a right leg stance. Because what that's going to do is it's going to help to align the hip, it's going to help to align the trunk, and once you have those lined up, you'll see the knee aligns, and then the foot and ankle, everything's in really good alignment. So the progression would go from back foot on the floor, then I could take a medicine ball and just put it behind, and then decrease the stability a little bit and test it out. So you go back foot on top of the ball, and then work through your patterns. So if it's, you know, a lunging pattern you can do, hopefully I'm still in the camera there. You can do pushing patterns, right? You can do, you know, pulling patterns, whatever the case is, and work through that. And then eventually, you know, working through like single leg, so it could be touchdowns where, you know, I take a cone, now we take the ball away and let's work through some touchdown patterns where, again, opposite arm to opposite leg, right? Just go as far down as you can stabilize. The goal is to maintain the proper trunk, hip, and knee and foot alignment as you come down, and, you know, progress it from there to a smaller cone or even to the floor, and just working through those touches. And then once you get good and stable, then you can start working into, like, you know, 2-arm touches, you know, something like that. All right, so that's basically, it's pretty simple. I don't think that there's anything complex to doing it. Again, you know, stick with the basics, and once you get that, then you can, you know, you have an unlimited number of exercises and things you can challenge in ways that you can train it. So that's just the basic way that I found is really effective for helping to overcome pronated ankles. All right, so I've got a lot more information on that. If you got serious ankle problems or sprains that you're dealing with, or you just want more of a rehab protocol, then you can find more of the exercises. I go through a whole bunch of them, all of them in my Injury Proof Your Ankles ebook. And so if you want, check that out. But anyways, in the meantime, go ahead and leave me a comment here on the blog and let me know how this worked for you, if you found it useful, and if there's any other information that you'd like me to do a video or a blog post on in the future, and I'll see about getting to it. All right, go ahead and try it out, and I'll talk to you later.